Let's get started. Hello everyone, welcome to this new webinar offered by challenge.me. We continue our overview of the models we offer on the platform and the use cases that can be addressed with these models. Today we are going to talk about the evaluation of large cohorts, the benefit of evaluating large cohorts with challenge.me is the possibility of saving time for teachers, and on the other hand, for students, the possibility of receiving feedback that is a bit more personalized than if it were the teacher evaluating hundreds of papers. So let me introduce myself briefly. My name is Florent. I am a coach at challenge.me, and I am responsible for supporting teachers and educational teams with their assessment project. So challenge.me is an evaluation platform that allows students, teachers, or external stakeholders to assess any type of material. We work with most of the major schools and universities in France, as well as French-speaking ones, since we also have clients in Switzerland, Canada, and Belgium now, and we are integrated with most school tools. So to facilitate usage, we are directly connected to these tools, and students and teachers do not need to enter any login information. They create an activity in their course and can access it directly. So we will start right away. I will present to you the famous use case of variations in large cohorts and the benefits we offer. So I will present this on our website. I repeat it every time. We offer you directly on the site. It is not exhaustive, but a large part of our use cases, in fact, directly that you can consult here in the usage examples, in the use case library. And you have a multitude of use cases. I believe there are more than 30 that you can consult for inspiration for your assessment activities to offer to your students. And today what will interest us is evaluating and giving personalized feedback to large cohorts. I will present it to you here on our site, and afterwards I will show you on the platform how it is implemented. I will also present to you a challenge that has already started, showing how a teacher can potentially review everything that has happened in their challenge to quickly see the information that is relevant in that use case. The interesting information will be to quickly see who received the lowest grades, who received the highest grades, whether there were any evaluation problems, if everyone participated, if there were grading issues, high standard deviations on certain assignments, etc. So we will look at that shortly. So the idea, as I presented to you just before, is to allow students to receive different personalized feedback on their work rather than a standard correction provided by the teacher, and to save time for the teacher because they will not need to evaluate all the work, but they can still have an overview and possibly look a little at what happened throughout the entire challenge. The benefits, specifically for the students, will personalize their learning, allowing them to receive different feedback from various people. If we have a large cohort and ask each student to evaluate 4, 5, or 6 assignments, it allows each student to receive a lot of feedback on their work, which is really interesting. As a result, this will allow them to improve the quality of their work on future assignments because they have received feedback, and based on their work on this challenge and on the upcoming challenges, they will be able to improve by taking into account a little bit of the feedback they have received. It will also allow students to engage a little more, so they will not only provide work, but they will also have to evaluate their classmates' work afterward. There is a whole process for them that changes their perspective, which is very interesting. It also allows them to put into perspective the work they have done. In relation to the work they are currently evaluating, it allows them to learn in this way as well, in a slightly different manner. This will obviously develop autonomy because they will be alone in completing these tasks, and they will start to put themselves in the teacher's shoes. And for teachers, obviously, the biggest strength, we could say, is the time savings. Obviously, we know that teachers cannot evaluate hundreds of assignments on their own. Well, with challenge.me, it will be possible without any problem. And that doesn't prevent, as I was saying, from following a bit of individual progress and checking that everything went well for one student or another, and seeing a little bit those who engaged, those who participated well, and those who provided good feedback or less good. You will see that in the evaluation phase, you will be able to select different criteria. We provide a few examples of criteria here, but of course it is really specific. The criteria you choose will be very specific. They are free to you and will really concern the production and will be in line with the production that each student will need to evaluate. So how does it work on challenge.me? Concretely, on challenge.me, we have a phase system that you can configure. In this use case, it will be very simple. There will be 3 phases. A phase where we will ask students initially to submit their work. This work can be submitted individually if you want the student to make a contribution individually or in groups. You can set that, excuse me, there is someone who has their microphone on. I will disable it. There you go, because everyone can hear it. I think I disabled the right person, sorry. The submission of work can be done individually or in groups. Either way works. It's up to you to decide. If you choose to work in a group, one student from the group will need to submit the work for the entire group. Any student in the group can complete this task, and other students can even log in to check that the work has been submitted. So this is for the submission phase of the work. You will see that you just need to set a couple of things like the dates and the participants. In a second phase, you will set up the evaluation phase. This is the important phase, and you should take some time to configure it, especially the selection of criteria. This is where you will specify the evaluation criteria that will be used by the students. This phase is generally part of this type of use case for evaluating large cohorts and to carry out individually. Each student will have to evaluate a number of works that you will define. And finally, there is the phase of displaying the results and calculating the scores. In this phase, you will be able to define the calculation of scores, whether you apply weights, penalties on certain points, which we will discuss shortly, and what you wish to display to the students in this phase. You can decide to display nothing. The results will not be available. For the teacher, you may want to display the results to the students, and the students will be able to view either their overall grade, the average on each of the criteria as seen on the small screen, the details of all the grades received, and the feedback. So I think in this case, it is interesting to enable the display of the feedback received, etc. You will be able to configure quite a few things, and you can always go a little bit further. So you will see that we will select a model that is defined like this by default, but you can always go a little bit further by adding different assessment modalities. So by default, it's a star system from 1 to 10 or a scoring system. Students must give a rating, but you will see that there are other evaluation systems you can implement if needed. And to go even further, you can add additional phases. Here we appear in these 3 phases, which are the standard phases for evaluating large cohorts, but we could even imagine a phase, for example, for evaluating the feedback received. Students, in addition to checking their results, will be able to assess the quality of the feedback received, and it can be taken into account or not in the grade. You can really go further in creating this type of challenge. We will go directly to the practice, and I will show you how first we add an activity to a course. Next, how do we set up this activity by selecting a model? And then I will show you on a challenge that has already started, which has data, how you will be able to track all of that. So here I am logged in as a teacher in Moodle. I am going to access my course here. I am going to switch to editing modes. I am changing. And I simply add my activity to my course here. So I click on add an activity or resource, and I select challenge me, which is in the list. Here I just provide a name. So I will put webinar. And I save to return to the course. I disable my editing mode and I click on the activity. There, I have simply added an activity. Now I will be able to configure it. I will be able to set up my challenge. So I click here, and here we have a first kind of homepage where you can find various resources and possibly make an appointment with one of our coaches if you need assistance in creating your challenge. Once you are okay with it, you can click on create a challenge, and there you will find yourself directly on the platform to create a challenge. You have 2 choices for selecting templates. You can start from scratch or duplicate an existing challenge if you have already created one and want to retrieve exactly the same settings. Otherwise, you can select templates. You have templates specifically for work evaluation. Students or teachers will evaluate a production, and specific templates for evaluating the members of one's group. This is really for assessing the members of the group with whom one has worked beforehand. In our case, it will obviously be an evaluation of work. Here, we are in the process of building all the models that we present to you each week. The model for large cohorts, it is not yet available, but it will certainly be by the end of the week. So for now, I will start by presenting this classic model, the submission and evaluation of work. The one that corresponds to the evaluations of large cohorts will be almost identical. I will show you the small points that may be different. So I will use this model here. Now I find myself in the first section, which is the general information. You will simply need to provide a name for your challenge and possibly a summary. It's very simple. What will interest us are the famous phases. I presented them to you earlier on the model on the website, and you can find them here directly. We have the famous 3 phases: the submission phase, an evaluation phase, and a results display phase. For each phase, you will need to click on it to configure it. And the only thing that will be asked of you for each phase is a date and participants and possibly different options. When I click on the submission phase, I will be able to select the date, define when the students can start submitting their work, and when they must have completed it, marking the end of the submission period. You can optionally set the possibility for students to submit late if needed, and the work submitted late will be marked as submitted late. You will see in the results phase, you may apply penalties to individuals who submit late. If you have allowed late submissions, you will be able to define different instructions, so they will really be targeted at what the students will need to produce. Different options, but here there is nothing specific for this use case. And the participants. And here you will be able to register the participants if it is done individually. Participants will be automatically retrieved from your Moodle course. So if the groups are already created or the participants are in your course, you just need to click here on enroll individually, for example, and you have all your groups, all your groupings, and all the users, and simply here, click on all users. So in my demo course, I only have 2 users. There you go. If I had 200, it would be the same principle. I would click here to select them all and register them with 1 click. So this is where you will be able to register participants for the submission phase. It is only for the submission phase. Next, we will move on to the evaluation phase. Similarly, we will be able to set dates, indicating when students can start evaluating their peers' work and when they must complete this evaluation. They will be able to define guidelines and the famous evaluation criteria. So it's really something to take seriously, as it will determine whether the evaluation is good. It's the evaluation criteria. Moreover, it is recommended for this type of evaluation to share the criteria grid in advance. This way, students are already preparing for the evaluation and know the criteria on which they will be assessed and the criteria they will need to use to evaluate their classmates' work. If you already have your own criteria, you can simply click here on New Criteria. If you have criteria and wish to use the Challenge Me criteria, you can click here on Predefined Criteria directly. But now you can also directly add a collection of criteria. What is a collection of criteria? It is packs of criteria that we have created. You can also create your own packs of criteria, but there are already quite a few that we have created. And you will be able to directly select a pack of criteria that will contain 4 to 5 criteria based on a defined modality. I am going to present all of this to you because it is really a novelty and it was implemented this week. When you click here, you will find packs of criteria that will relate either to subjects, use cases, or contributions. Here we have created a pack of criteria that will rather concern regarding business games, the detection of free riders, the development of soft skills, etc. And for our use case, we might prefer to use this pack, which is the evaluation of a document or the evaluation of a podcast if the work involves creating a podcast, or the evaluation of a poster if the work involves creating a poster. And on the right, you see all the criteria included in this package. So we will proceed with the idea that we will ask the students to create a PDF, a document, etc. So we are going to use this pack of criteria, and automatically, when I select it, it will add the 5 criteria, if I'm not mistaken, the 6 criteria that were included in this pack. nothing prevents me from modifying them if needed. So in fact, we can say that we use a basic set of criteria and then we can modify it, really adjust it if needed. So if there are, for example, criteria in the package that do not suit you, it's not a problem. You can add the package and you can completely remove a criterion or modify it to fit your needs exactly. So this allows us to support you, as we know that it can sometimes take time to assist you in creating criteria. Grids. So this will be for the criteria part. You will also be able to define some options. One option to consider here is really the number of works to be evaluated per participant. By default, it is 3. For this type of evaluation, it is recommended to evaluate a bit more. For example, each student will be asked to evaluate 5. This way, students will receive even more feedback. This could be interesting for them. Then you will be able to integrate the participants. As before, you will be able to enroll them individually directly from your course. You even have an option to synchronize the participants with respect to a previous phase. If they have already been registered in the submission of work, we can simply say, I retrieve the students from the submission of work as is, and I will find myself here with the students who were registered in the previous phase, which avoids seeing all the registered students directly here. So there you go. For the evaluation phase, it's simple. The platform takes care of distributing the work, etc. You just need to set the number. Don't worry about whether all the work will be evaluated. Yes, all the work will be evaluated if the students participate correctly, and all the work will receive roughly the same number of evaluations. And to finish, you will be able to configure the results phase and define when the results will be calculated by the platform, and also when you wish to display the results to the students. So this takes place in the display options here for the results phase, and here you will be able to define what you want to show to the students. So do you want them to receive their grades, the average by criterion, the overall average of the entire class, or the details of the grades? So the details of the grades are not just the average, rather it's all the details of the grades they received and the feedback they received. So in this usage case, we recommend including the overall average, the grade, and the average by criterion for the student as well as the feedback received. You also have the option, as I mentioned briefly earlier, to configure the calculation of this grade here in the grading section, which is still part of the results phase. You will define how you want the final grade to be calculated. So you can set it to 20, as is often the case here, and you will be able to apply different coefficients. So in our case, there is not much point in applying coefficients to the criteria or the phases, although for certain criteria, you may eventually choose to weigh some criteria more than others. In the calculation of the grade, this is to apply different coefficients to the criteria and then penalties. Here, it could be interesting to implement it. Late penalties. If students have submitted their work late or evaluated late, you will be able to apply penalties in terms of points directly. I can say that for the evaluation, those who evaluated late will receive fewer points, for example. And you can also apply penalties for those who do not participate at all in the evaluation. So a student who may have submitted work but did not engage in the evaluation process can be penalized as well by defining the phase on which you wish to apply the penalty and the number of penalty points. So we can say this is a bit more important. For example, it is 5 penalty points if one does not participate in the evaluation phase, and it is the system that will automatically calculate the grade for each student. So there you go. Once you have filled in the information about the 3 phases, that's it. The challenge is ready, so to speak. Once you have dates, participants, different options, and evaluation criteria, your challenge is set up and you can publish it once it is ready and it will start automatically. And for the students, they will simply have to click on the activity in your course to access it as long as it has started. That's it for the creation part. And I will show you directly how it works in terms of tracking. So here, I have a challenge that has already started up here. Let's imagine that I am still acting as a teacher, and I will click on it, and I will be directed to the activity tracking. For your information, you can return to the challenge configuration via navigation button. To switch to the configuration of the challenge, as we just saw with the phases, and to monitor the activity here, In the activity tracking, what will be interesting to see, just for clarification, is that this challenge does not correspond to the usage case I am talking about. That is to say, you can see that there are many other phases. It is a demonstration challenge in which we have a lot of data to present a little bit of all the use cases, but this is to give you a little representation of the interface, and you can see everything you will be able to consult on this interface. So you see that we have the different phases here. The submission phase, which is green, the evaluation phase, which is blue, and the results phase, which is red, just like in this configuration. In the submission phase, you will be able to consult here. So here it's in a team setting, but if it were individual, you would have the names of the students individually. And here, the details of each student with whether they have validated their work or not, whether they have submitted their work properly, if they are still working in draft mode, etc. You have all the participation information. You can optionally filter by searching for a specific student to see if they have submitted their work and even click to view it. The work that has been submitted by the student. You can also, it happens sometimes, submit work on behalf of a student if they have a connection issue, if they cannot log into the platform for one reason or another, or if they do not have access to the course in your LMS, and they send you the document by email. You can always log in. For example, if it is Theo who sent us this file, click on Validate. For now, there are none. And click here, directly, on the ability to add a contribution in place of the student. So there is already something in draft, but the idea is that you can definitely add a document on behalf of the student to tell them, okay, your work has been successfully added, it can be evaluated, no problem. Therefore, you can do it on behalf of the student if needed. So you have all the participation information. If needed, you can, if the phase is still ongoing, as is the case here, remind the participants with one click right here, and it will send a reminder. All students who have not passed, meaning those who have a 0 in passing, who have not validated their work, the platform will automatically remind them. So this can be very practical when you have reminders to send to large cohorts. With one click, you can remind them. So I see there is a question in the chat. Yes, so I will take a plate and I will come to drop off a sheet of brick. Then I came to drop off a melted cheese. I will pass you in the middle and I will come to present it. I will come to express it slightly. I believe there is a small issue with the sound. I don't know if I thought it was a question. I am going to turn off the sound. Sorry for this little issue. I will read the chat question. Hello, I may have missed the information. How can we distribute the number of assignments to be evaluated per student? I will show you that quickly to get back to the configuration of the challenge here in the evaluation phase. So this concerns the evaluation phase here, specifically the evaluation of assignments. You have in the options the number of assignments to be evaluated per student here. So you define this number directly. In the given example, each student will have to evaluate 3 assignments. So you simply set that up, and the platform takes care of distributing the assignments for evaluations. There you go. Perfect. Now let's return to our activity tracking. So here we talked about the information on submitting assignments. You have the same information for the evaluation of the assignment. So you can see each student, which student evaluated which group or another student, the grade that was given, etc. The view of all students showing what they have successfully validated, along with all their evaluations. You have the number of evaluations to validate and the number that has been validated so far. You have some filters to show only those who have not yet validated a contribution, as well as those who may have validated it late. And you have important information, those who have possibly made evaluations that are considered by the system as overgraded or undergraded. Here, if I click on undergraded, it will filter. And there we see that these 2 students, based on the evaluations they have completed, are considered by the system to be undergraded. This is very important, especially for overgrading. Eventually, a student who doesn't play fair and gives everyone a 10 will definitely be seen as overgrading here directly through the filter. Once you have this information, you will see that it is indicated by a small icon here, a downward arrow for undergrading and an upward arrow for overgrading. You can click on it and see the evaluations of this student. There we see that the 2 groups he evaluated are considered undergraded. And there, what you can do is consult the evaluation, see a little bit of the details of the grades that were given, possibly the feedback, and consider that it is fair, perhaps indicated as undergraded by the system, but you still consider it fair and well argued, so you leave it as it is. But if necessary, if you see that the evaluation has not been done correctly by the student, you can directly invalidate an evaluation here that you considered irrelevant, etc., so that they are not taken into account in the calculation of the grade, so that the student's grade, the grade on the student's work, is not distorted, in fact, directly. So there you go. You really get this view quickly because it's a real issue when you have a large cohort. It's about making sure that everyone has evaluated properly. The system detects this kind of issue, such as overgrading, and you can, if necessary, either leave it as is, saying it's part of the peer evaluation process, or alternatively, you can adjust and intervene if needed to invalidate evaluations that should not have taken place or that were done a bit too quickly by the students and did not adhere to the process. So here you have all this information about participation in evaluations. And to conclude, I will show you the results right here, how you will be able to view the results directly here on our testing channel. I don't know if I click on update, but for you it will be updated live. Let's say the results, and you will be able to view the grade, this time calculated by the system for each of the students. So we see the final grade, which includes the grade with penalties if you have applied and set penalties for this or that reason. Eventually, the number of penalty points that have been applied for each of the students, the raw score, let's say, without penalty, and the score in my case. As I mentioned, I have several phases, but you may only have one evaluation phase for the assignments. So only the evaluation phase for the assignments will be displayed here directly, allowing you to see each student's grade. Then, with all this, you have a couple of options. You can recalculate. Let's say you didn't apply any penalties initially and you want to apply one once you see the results, because you notice that quite a few students did not participate. You can go back to the score calculation settings here, and you have those famous coefficients and penalties, and possibly apply new penalties directly. Simulate this configuration, check that it suits you, and if it does, update the grades here directly to apply them. These will be the final grades recorded in the system for each student. And if you have displayed the results to the students will indeed see their new grades with the penalties. And now you have an option that has always been there, which is that you have the possibility to export these results in Excel format if needed, if you want to work on them with formulas directly in Excel. So you will have one row per student with all the grades they have received. And you can also publish the grades to your LMS. So directly it will upload the grades to your gradebook. For now, this feature is only available for Moodle. So if your school does not use Moodle, but for example, Blackboard or Brightspace, we are working on that. But now we can publish the grades directly in the gradebook. It requires a small configuration with the school since there are minor things that change, and we are doing it gradually with all the schools to adjust this. But if you really need it, we can perform this operation so that you can automatically upload all the grades into your course gradebook. There you go. It's noon. That's perfect. I've done a quick overview. I went through it a bit fast, so feel free to ask any questions directly in the chat or to turn on your microphone. Otherwise, you can also contact me directly by email if you would like a more in-depth demo, etc., or if you want to discuss your use case.